Choice hotels get you more for your money so you can maximize any road trip. Like with the road trippers we see here in their natural habitat, the breakfast area at a Comfort Inn. Here's a dad teaching his son how to make waffles, fluffy golden waffles. There's a mom making sure her daughter eats some fruit to avoid the "I'm hungry" from the back seat. And a sibling standoff over the last muffin. This is the cycle of vacation maximizationing in all its glory. Check into more. Book direct to choicehotels.com.
The Manage Smarter Show is brought to you by SalesCred, the sales skill building solution that empowers sales teams worldwide to multiply sales opportunities by improving perception, accelerating trust building, and by earning repeat business. Get the best-selling book by C. Lee Smith, download the free mobile app, and now sign up for the SalesCred Masterclasses. Book your session now at salescred.com. Welcome to the Manage Smarter podcast with hosts C. Lee Smith and Audrey Strong. We're glad you're here for discussions on new ways to manage smarter, hire, develop, and retain talent, improve results, and propel team performance to new heights. This is the Manage Smarter podcast.
In the early days of this podcast, Lee, remember who we had on the show? We had Brian Tracy on the show. Yes. Mm-hmm. And our guest today was mentored by Brian Tracy. And here we are, 4 years later and almost 250 episodes. Circle, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Time is flying by, but man, I'm so excited to have Derek Johnson on the show today. Welcome to Manage Smarter, everyone. My name is Audrey Strong. I am the Senior Vice President of Communications here at Sales Fuel.
And I'm C. Lee Smith. I'm the founder and CEO of Sales Fuel.
So what an interesting background Derek Johnson has. He has a unique perspective in the subject of great sales leadership, strategic thinking, and successful execution. Listen to this, everyone. His father served with General George Patton in World War II. Leadership and strategy deep in his blood, and Derek himself, a military veteran. You are a medic, right, Derek? Is that what
I was? Yeah.
Yeah. Lifelong student of human nature and history. Started working for Brian Tracy. You don't know who he is, that's a whole other set of books y'all need to go out and get beyond Derek's book.
Well over 90 of them.
Yeah.
Derek has led sales teams for both publicly traded companies and bleeding edge startups. He's got more than 20 years of sales leadership experiment. He's been in all kinds of national trade media, PC World, Inc., Investors Business Daily, does a lot of radio and TV. I want to say, at the time of this recording, but you'll get it up probably very quickly, his website is currently down, so we will send you all to his Instagram.
Right.
And the title of his book is called The Strategic Sales Leader, Mastering the Art of Vision, Strategy, and Execution. Derek, thank you for coming.
What an amazing introduction. Thank you.
Well, I mean, it's what an amazing life you have. And one of the things we've never talked about on the show, which is why I really wanted to talk to you, is talking about internal politics and power plays and dynamics on sales teams. And you and Lee probably have some good horror stories about that.
Oh, yeah, too many of them. Plus, we also have the current administration where we're starting to see a little bit of backbiting and everything like that going on, which is typical wherever you get large group of people together, wherever you're going to have people then with different self-interest, and sometimes the self-interest, or there's a phrase that I like to use, I think is apropos here, which is "Don't let your battle interfere with our war." And
nice.
So I think that's where we're getting to, and internal politics can really gum up the works or whatever and keep us from winning that war.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's interesting about the internal politics is that in a sales leadership position, I think that the internal politics are the hardest part of the job. Mm-hmm. Because the sales ecosystem, if you've done your homework, you know what you're dealing with, you know what the adversaries are, your competitors, what have you, you know who the team is you have to work with, their shortcomings or how great they might be, what have you. The internal politics, though, the agendas, it's a very Machiavellian world. In fact, I start the last section of my book about the office politics with a quote from Machiavelli. Paraphrasing the quote is it's we're change agents in sales.
Right.
And nothing happens until something changes. And most people don't like change. We can get into what that really means later. But internally, the fact that you have three groups, you have a group that's benefited from the old way. You have another group that's not sold that the new way is going to happen. And then you have a third group that's waiting to see who's going to win. And again, I'm paraphrasing from Machiavelli. And so what ends up happening is us in sales, we just want to do what? Revenue, sales, get more business, make sure our products are deliverable or they work. Everyone else, though, and it sounds kind of harsh, but in sales, we have the only job where every month we know exactly whether we succeeded or failed.
Hmm. We don't have to send a list of 5 accomplishments every week to somebody
Oh
else.
boy. You,
Yeah.
I was thinking about that because it's again in sales, you know revenue, you know renewals when you existing customers, you know how many sales calls you went on, how many emails you sent,
You know
all
your
it's
close
very
rate, you know, all that stuff.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we live in a different world. And so the challenge is when you're dealing with other departments, so you've got your marketing department, you've got your operations your department, you got maybe your warehouse shipping, research and development, whatever you have in your organization, they have a different agenda. And it may not be in sync with yours. And that's where in my career I've seen the biggest strife I've felt and stress been from that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because like people have been talking about sales and marketing alignment forever,
Yes.
and we still talk about it to this day.
Yes.
And it's like if you ever think that there are two departments that ever should be in lockstep with each other, it would be those two. But yet we still talk about it to this day.
Again, different mindsets. I think it's
Right.
interesting because a lot of and again, I'm going to take a lot of heat for this. A lot of the marketing guys I've worked with in my career were failed salespeople.
Oh, interesting.
But yet, and again, this is anecdotal, so take it for what it is. But what's interesting to me is that there were failed salespeople, meaning they did sales for 2, 3 years, ended up in marketing, and then stayed in marketing for the next 10, 15, 20 years. But they still think that they're better at sales and know more about sales than you do. And that's where that the head bumping begins.
So what's the most common internal politics scenarios that occur over and over and are perennial? And then what is in your book that are some practical tips for fixing it?
So we are very self-centered. Okay, this is going back to my Brian Tracy days. Uh, one of the first things I was taught was that everyone's tuned into one radio station. Boy, am I dating myself here. So but just ride with me on this. So back when FM radio was a thing, we used the acronym WIIFM. What's in it for me?
Yes.
What's in it for me? And everyone has their own separate agenda. And the only way as a leader, and this is just in terms of any kind of leadership, but generally speaking, sales leadership, you have to understand what does a win look like? What does the person R&D need to get for you to get their buy-in? Marketing, what do they need to look good to get their next promotion, their next pay raise, or then expansion of their department? You have to think in terms of what their wins look like, and they have to sync up with yours, or at least overlap. The more they overlap, the more you're going to have those people working along with you. We are selfish creatures for the most part. And if you can appeal to that self-centeredness that lies within the center of most people, then you have a chance of winning.
You know, the thing that I see is that great leaders, though, have the clarity of vision and to be able to communicate the one goal that we all have to strive towards. So it's like if you know, we've got to drive the Nazis out of France. We've
Yes.
got, you know, we're Ohio State. We have to beat Michigan. You know, it is the one singular thing that is indisputable. Everybody's in lockstep. They know what that is. But what's your advice then for most leaders who really struggle to define that and articulate that to their team?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. The BHAG, the Big Hairy Audacious Goal. And you mentioned, we have to defeat the Nazis. I'm a massive fan of Eisenhower, obviously Patton, because my father served with Patton. JFK, John F. Kennedy, when he did that speech about, we will set forth a mission to send a man to the moon, land on the moon, and bring them back safely. BHAG, that was a big, hairy, audacious goal.
Not
I
because
mean,
it's easy, but because it's hard.
exactly.
Mhm.
And so as a leader, you have to think of, okay, what is it that we can accomplish that's big enough to be exciting, but not so big that's terrifying. You want to have that the butterflies in your stomach, nervous energy. You want everyone to feel that with you. So the BHAG, it's that vision that you set forth, and I'm glad you mentioned that because the vision is the why. Why are we doing this? Why are we spending so much time and energy and sleepless nights and the hours and what have you? The why has to be big. The why has to it's what's going to carry you. If a leader doesn't have a clear vision of that, ooh, you might have to rethink everything. you have to rethink everything. You have to have the why, because here's the thing. You can either light a fire underneath someone, which is very traditional leadership, or you can ignite a fire within someone. The vision ignites the fire within the individual so that they will go above and beyond to accomplish that vision.
Yeah. What is one of the most surprising insights or counterintuitive lessons from the book that you think will surprise our listeners?
How hard change is.
Yeah.
I think that we underestimate as human beings, first, and as salespeople, second, how hard change is. It's very counterintuitive because we think, let me give you an example. I've been trying to lose the same 20 pounds for like 5 years. Okay. And I know that I need to eat a little bit less, move a little bit more, and so on and so forth. And intuitively, I know that, but it's hard. There's a myriad of things that come against me. There's a study that I write about in my book when we get to talk about change, and the study was done, and it was a very wide study done across hospitals, and the gist of it was this: people who'd suffered a major health scare, like serious, needed to get an emergency heart stent put in because they were having a heart attack. They were told, here's the thing, if you don't make some major changes in your life, you're going to die. Holy cow. We're not asking someone to upgrade their operating system or move their company to the cloud or whatever. We're talking one-on-one. These are doctors talking to someone saying, you had a major life event. If you don't change, you're going to die. Lee, what percent do you think people changed? Just take a wild guess.
8%.
How much?
8.
You're good.
How much was it? 8?
It was less than 10. Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah, you're good. Evidently, Lee doesn't have much faith in humanity because he understands humanity. Good for you, man. But here's the thing.
He's managed a lot of personalities over the years, so he knows how this goes.
So the follow-up to that study is,
you know what it is? It's the inertia. It is the gravitational pull of the status quo.
Right.
If once people, the status quo, you may not like it, you may bitch about it, but you know what it is, you know what it's going to be tomorrow in all likelihood or whatever. And the idea of someone coming in and upsetting your apple cart, I'm thinking about the Porter's Five Forces here, the threat of, new competitors coming in, or partners that are supposed to be on your side or are now trying to screw you over, or, things like that. It's like that threatens the status quo and threatens our comfort zone.
Yes.
And that's why I think the number is as low as it is.
You're the first one to get it right, so kudos to you. And I've done myriad of podcasts. You're the first one to get it right. And the follow-up to that was 2 years later, they did the follow-up. That's how they came up with that number, by the way. So it wasn't just an arbitrary thing. They followed up, and either the people had passed away. Yeah, this is serious. Or they'd had another major health event where they needed like quadruple bypass surgery.
God. So those 3 groups you talked about at the top. So, okay, people don't like change. The 3 groups you outlined in the first question of the show. As a manager, how do I get those 3 groups to change so that they're all cohesive on my team? Since nobody wants to change.
Well, so we touched upon it briefly, which is what is it they desire, but that's not enough because we desire health, we desire to be in better shape, and so on and so forth. We desire more money, whatever it is that you desire. We also have to understand the behavioral. I guess you could call it behavioral economics. In sales, we are risk averse, but we have, I guess the kids call it FOMO, fear of missing out. Mm-hmm. That fear of losing is more powerful than the desire of something great. Remember, there's 2 motivations in life. We're either moving towards pleasure or away from pain.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to get that balance of adding enough fear and enough pleasure to drive them. And that's the hard part, though, isn't it?
How do you do that?
It's art and science. Because you have to understand each individual has a different threshold for that. And so you have to have a pretty good understanding. We talked about this a second ago, which was understand what their desire is, but also what's at stake if they don't change career-wise, organizationally wise. So you have to have that fear in there too. Because here's the thing. If less than 10% of people are willing to make a life change if they're going to die, how are you going to get someone to change otherwise? And you have to play that psychological manipulation. I hate to use the word, but that is what it is.
It's when I was my executive coach a few years ago. Basically, we broke it down into thirds, sort of like how you did. And I like to describe it this way: it's like you have, one third, that are, driving the bandwagon. You
Right.
have one third that are trying to destroy the bandwagon, and you have one third that are, waiting to join the bandwagon. Once
Yes.
they see that it's actually a bandwagon. So it's like you can sell the first one third pretty well and get them on board as a leader. Without a whole lot of difficulty if you could explain, your vision clearly and everything like that, and it makes sense. You do have those people, whatever that, are not the early adopters, and they're the joiners, and you can get them on, and that's about 2/3. So you're in pretty good shape. It's like I'm wondering about the last third, the detractors. The constant people that take a critical eye toward everything. Or it's the one guy in every training session you ever lead, right? That either has to be the know-it-all or has
Yeah.
to be the guy that puts the stick in the spokes or whatever and annoys the hell out of you. I mean, what's your advice for dealing with that person?
It depends on where they are in the power hierarchy.
No.
Mm.
So I address that too. Uh, if the individual is very low on the food chain, if you will, ignore them because everyone else will too. So we've all talked about the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle. You get 80% of your results from 20% of your efforts. You make 80% of your revenue from 20% of your customers, so on and so forth. What we don't talk a lot about is Price's law. And Price's law says that 50% of the results come from the square root of an organization, a number of an organization. So let me be more specific. Price's law would say that an organization of 100 people, 10 people are responsible for 50% of the results for that organization. So as if you're trying to be a change leader, you have to understand and ascertain and determine who those people are in your organization. Because those are the ones you have to win over. Back to Lee's point, the know-it-all, the person who's just an anchor on you. If they're in that top 50%, then yeah, you need to find out what it is that you need to address to move them. But if they're not, you can ignore them. Sounds harsh, but that's the reality.
I
But
call
what I
those
also heard
Eeyores.
better, yeah, what I actually heard though in the answer, which is you have people that are willing to die on a hill for just about anything, and it's like you got to pick your battles. I know I'm going to throw out every single management cliche I can do it in one question, but it's like
Accurate.
yeah, but it's like is that really the hill you want to die on? Seriously, or are we going to sit here and argue about what color the folders are for the next meeting or something like that? Or it's like,
Yeah.
and it's like
The font size. Yes.
yeah, exactly that. So, advice for identifying which battles to pick and fight versus which ones just to let go.
That's where you have to have your strategic hat on and understand outcomes. What's at stake? You have the clear idea. So for me, I like to map out everyone in my organization, the official hierarchy. There's always an unofficial hierarchy, as we know, and that's the one that'll bite you if you're not aware of it. The unofficial
Hmm.
hierarchy, and map out who the players are. You have to have a really good understanding of who the players are before you can determine what battle you're going to win or walk away from in the war. Once you've mapped them out, then you can determine what's at stake for each battle. What do you stand to gain? What do you stand to lose? And again, that's thinking three, 4 moves out. It takes a lot of strategic thinking. You have to be acutely aware of what do I stand to gain? What do I stand to lose in each of these individual battles? And what do they mean collectively? And which are the ones that I have to win to move forward? And again, that goes back to that Price's law, right? The square root of an organization. There might be, again, just pick the number, make it easy. There's 100 people in your organization, in your business unit. There's 10 people that you have to win over. Those are the battles that you want to make sure that you win. The other 90, maybe not. Maybe they're not critical to where you're trying to get to.
How often should you update your unofficial hierarchy? Yearly? Because, people that you're mentoring and bringing along will stay in the top 10 and others might fall out and new ones might come up.
I would take advice from brilliant strategist Colonel John Boyd, who for you guys who watch Top Gun Maverick, the movie character is loosely based on John Boyd. And if you want to learn about strategy in a Maverick, John Boyd is fascinating reading, but the conversation for another time. John Boyd, who was a fighter pilot and literally wrote the book on air warfare, coined an acronym called OODA, the OODA loop. And essentially it's observe, orient, decide, act. And it's a continuous loop. It never stops.
Oh, okay.
So the answer to your question is that it's a continuous loop that never stops. You have to continuously be observing what's around you, orienting yourself to this new reality, deciding what you're going to do, and then acting. So the OODA loop is a nonstop loop. It's again, I've oversimplified it obviously, but it's a continuous loop. So to answer your question more succinctly, it's all the time. It never stops.
One of the biggest challenges that C-suite leaders told us in our research that they have to overcome. The first one, of course, is inflation and cost of goods. Still a lot of concern about that. But also tied for number 2 is AI and its impact then on their team, on their workforce, on their company. So thinking about this loop, how does that apply to AI and adoption and taking it and leveraging it?
I think that AI, what I've seen, and again, 6 months from now, what I say now could be completely obsolete. So take it with a grain of salt, right?
Yeah.
So what I've seen so far in AI is from the perspective of the level of sales development rep, business development rep, the AI capability to make cold calls, bang out cold call endlessly, and the quality is shocking. I'm talking like they have the ums and the ahs and they sound. I mean, you don't know that you're talking to a robot basically, but the scripting, the large language models are so bang on.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
so I think and I actually addressed that in the book, but you're going to have a sales leader and any kind of leader, you're going to adjust to that in terms of saying, if I don't incorporate AI into my world, into my ecosystem, to my business, what happens if my competitors do and I don't? So there's going to be a level of efficiency. I came up old school way when I started in sales. I got a copy of the white pages. They say start cold calling, smile and dial. That's and now you got predictive dialers and you've got intent with Zoom Info and 6sense, all those different things that help you. At least you're calling someone who works. The AI thing is going to help you. It's like a force multiplier is what it is. And if you use it as a force multiplier for your sales team, I think it's going to be fantastic. If you don't, you're going to be left behind.
Right. Okay, this is a quick 20 minutes. Your Instagram is Hardcore Leaders, everyone. Website, I'm not sure when this is going to come out, but your website is going to be up shortly. And do you want to give the address anyway?
Yeah, so it's actually wstrat.co. So it's short for Wellington Strategic. So it's WWilliamStrat.co. But you can reach out to me on my Instagram. It seems like most people are big on the Instagram thing.
Yeah, I like your Instagram.
Love the gram. Yeah.
Yeah. And your email is Derek at Derek W. Johnson, SON, everyone.com.
Yes.
Lee, I'll let you have the last question.
Well, Annie, I want to go back to that unknown hierarchy there. So what is your advice then for actually determining, what that that unseen, undocumented hierarchy actually is?
Oh boy, we could do a whole show just on that. There's people who watch for the people who get more done than their title implies. They get things approved, expenses approved, days off, anything that's a standard deviation from the norm. Anything that's a little bit of different from the norm in terms of shows what they get away with, what they get approved for. That's not lined up with where their title is, because that a red flag should go off immediately. And I'm thinking about a real example. I'm not going to name names, obviously, of a person who was having an affair with the CEO, had way more power than she should have had based on her title. And we found out later they end up subsequently being found out. They both left the organization. Yeah, soap opera. But she had so much more clout than her title represented. And it didn't make much sense until we found out later she was having an affair with the CEO. So that's an extreme example.
Yeah, usually it's just because someone overperforms, and so therefore the company wants to move heaven and earth or whatever to keep them happy and they see them as the future of the company. But
yes, there's some places where if someone is being mentored by someone very, very high up on the food chain, I got someone in mind right now in an organization I work with that was a C-level executive who took someone under their wing, and we were not aware of that, and that person was bulletproof. Correct.
Derek Johnson being mentored by Brian Tracy, maybe.
Yeah, I turned 21 when I was with Brian Tracy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, the book again, everybody, The Strategic Sales Leader, Mastering the Art of Vision, Strategy. Yep, he's holding up an execution.
Look at that.
Derek, congratulations on the book and best of wishes to you, and everybody reach out to him if you'd like to engage.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more great information at salesfuel.com.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.